Hey, what's up guys? So on the next few lessons, I'm gonna be showing you how to create an up-tempo, more of a club type beat, something that's gonna make you wanna dance, something, a lot more fast-paced, higher tempo. So to start, I'll be simple, just try and find, a right sound or melody. I think for this specific idea, I wanna find a melodic progression that's gonna like guide me in adding all the rest of the different types of elements. So in my head, something that I want to like explore is playing maybe with a vocal chop or something, a vocal sample. And I think with that I can start messing around and maybe come up with something that's giving me a sort of vibe. And from there on we can start playing around with different chords maybe to be side by side with that main melody, and adding all the different elements, which would be percussion, bass, effects, anything that would make the track sound a lot better. So let's start with the first part, which would be finding that vocal chop or sound or one shot. So I would just go into my libraries of samples and stuff and just write over here just VOC from vocal, just to see what pops up. I have a bunch of stuff that I've gathered from Splice, which is an amazing company, a page where you can find amazing quality and good samples for whether it is percussion, whether it's melodic, whether it's ambience, whatever you need, different genres. Like something that I highly recommend for you guys to start like scrolling around. So let's just start like playing different types of sounds. I think these don't really fit what I'm looking for. They're more of a shouts and stuff. So I think from over here we're gonna have a couple like cool loops. So let's see which one of these could probably work. So I think I like this one. So for this one, I think I wanna, the sessions opens up at 120 BPM. I think I wanna stay in this range. But that could change by putting in a melody or start working on the drums, and probably feel it needs to be faster, it needs to be slower, but we can play around with that later on. So let's just create a section over here. Let's loop it. And for this one, since it's already a loop, I'm just gonna throw it in here as an audio file. Let me just play this out right now how it is, and then we can start playing around with it. So I think it's cool, but in my head, I'm listening to it in a different way. So what I'm gonna do is cut this little piece over here with Command E. So I separate this from the rest of the, of the loop. I'm gonna drag this to the right and move this towards the beginning. And to start making it, come together, I'm gonna play the click and start seeing tempo wise where it is, if I need to drag things, to the left or to the right, and find that right progression. So let's start playing around with it. So I think it's cool, but I feel I need to play around with the timing on some of the notes that the vocal is hitting. So for this, I'm gonna consolidate this whole track, which would be, I'm gonna merge these two pieces that are separated right now and just turn them into one by, consolidating, doing Command J. You see, now there's no division over here. It's all a complete track. So I'm gonna open this up, and you're gonna see over here, you have all these little, lines and grids. I'm gonna want to like move certain elements of the vocal chop. So anything that I wanna like end up like moving, I'll just like double click over here, and you see this yellow line comes up. This is gonna let me move back and forward just that section over there. So I'm just Command Z, which would be undo, to keep it where it was. And let's start playing around and see what parts do I want to, move to the right or move to the left. So I think it's So I think I'm gonna keep this section over here where it's starting this part. And I wanna move these over here, I think towards the right. So it comes in a little bit later, not so early. So I think this is getting better to where I'm feeling it should sound better. I'm gonna do one grid over here and move this to the right. So I think that part already sounds good. Now we gotta move the rest of them a little bit towards the right too. I'm gonna put a marker over here on this one so it doesn't move too drastically, and just move these over to the right. So I think we have a cool pattern right now. So now I don't really want to keep it exactly how it's, you know, originally sounding. So I'm just gonna play around right now with just like maybe raising the pitch with this knob over here. It's just bringing it up a key, or bringing it down, wherever you want to do with it. So I just bring it up like, let's say 5. You're gonna listen, it's gonna start sounding on a different key. So I think that sounds cool. So for now, we have like a starting point with you know, main progression melodically. So now what I want to do is, we have the higher end of that melody part. Now let's find the bases of it. With, it could be a bass, it could be a lead, but something on the lower range, you know, on the octaves. So let's just go over, you know, to the keyboards and start finding, you know, what would be a good, you know, lower end for this melody that we already have, you know, laid on over here. So I'm gonna go to the keyboards and start playing with some of the presets that come with, you know, the keyboard. I'm gonna be working on the Virus TI from Axis, which is a really, you know, dope keyboard. I really like it a lot. It has a lot of like synth sounds, like the quality is amazing. So I highly recommend that one. It's really cool. It's different from the other, you know, vintage ones. This is a little bit more modern. So let's just hop over and start, you know, going through some ideas. I'm gonna put this to record and see what we can find that, you know, could work. So I think I like this. I'm gonna put the click so I can really know exactly the tempo of this and start playing around with that right now. So let's record now with a click put on. So I I think we have a cool bass, bass line on this sound that we already had. I'm gonna scroll and duplicate this to another section, so we go twice around, and we can just like drag all of this back so we can hear like maybe 2 takes from everything that I already did, and maybe find the right ones. I know that we did over there some on the higher octave towards the end and some on the lower ones, so maybe I can play around with both options. So let me see how this sounds over here right now. So I think now we have it. We have the one that ends up a little bit higher, the one that ends up a little bit lower. So let's select everything over here, and we can probably quantize everything. So you saw how everything comes up with a marker now. So everything just went from being played a little bit all over the place to being exactly on the grid. And that makes it sound a little bit more precise. But as you see over here, when I zoomed in, it's not always perfect. So you might want to like really go in and probably make sure that everything is in place. Like this is coming in a little bit sooner, so you want to just drag this one to the right. Let's go right over to the beginning and see if there's any more mistakes within this. Yeah, this is coming in a little bit late, so let's have everything, all of those attacks coming in on the grid. Let's make sure that everything is on where it's supposed to be. Takes a while, but it's worth it to make everything sound perfectly how you want it to sound. Like, just take the time to make sure. Let's just play everything together and see how this sounds now. So I think it sounds cool. I'll probably grab this ending over here from the audio file, and you see this little marker over here, this little box. You can move this and create kind of like a fade out, so you don't really hear like a clipping at the end. Like if you cut it like too drastically, you will listen to a little bit of a clip. So this helps to not have that. It will kind of like fade out the volume as you see on the graphic, and just like cut off any little clipping towards the end. So now with this, I'm trying to see if I can make this sound a little bit more let's see, a little bit bigger. So let's work on getting a little bit of saturated a little bit maybe. So let's go over to the audio effects, drive, saturator over here, and let's throw the low end, see if that helps, and probably brings it a little bit more forward, and start playing around with this. So I think that sounds a little bit better now. What I want to try, just to see as an option, I must copy this and move it to the next pattern to keep it as it is, but just to play around with it and probably take a little bit out of the tail of the waveform, everything on this area that is kind of like extending the sound a little bit. Let's probably play around with that and probably take a little bit out of that off, creating changing this from complex to beats, transient, everything towards the right, and let's just start like taking, you know, a little bit of that off and see if, you know, if we get something that's a little bit cleaner. So I think I like it. I think I'm gonna keep this, you know, as an option. And now we have, you know, a higher octave like melody, a lower bass to give it, you know, the ground and everything that's gonna like drive what the melodies are. So what I think I want to add on top of these two probably would be some chords. I'll probably go from this into plugins. I'll probably keep it over here on Sonic Academy, the Anna. I think it's a really cool, you know, plugin. It has a lot of different synthesizers and, you know, different, you know, cool sounds. So let's go over here to the, well, it's already over here, key section. Let's start playing around with different, you know, keys type of sounds, and let's play around with finding the right sound, and then we go over to the keyboard and start creating some, you know, cool chords for this. Not sure, too much of a bell. I think this one works. Maybe let's see if we can take a little bit of the reverb off of it. So let's go over here to find, you know, where the effects on this, you know, track is. So there's some played over here. It's a chorus. Okay, plate. So let's take this and probably take it off. There's a reverb over here, so let's. So I think this works now. So let's go over to the keyboard and start working on creating some chords for this melody progression that we have. So I think I like this little element that I added. It's not really much of like all the chords that it has, but I think we can maybe expand on this particular, you know, next melody that we have and make it more of a chord when it's alone by itself. And, you know, but maybe keep it more simple on this, you know, section that we have over here. So I'm just gonna like Command J to consolidate everything, make it just one track. I saw that some, you know, notes over here disappeared. So I'm gonna just like select everything, Command U to like quantize, make everything go exactly on the grid, not so loose or coming in before or after. And let's see which one of these. I think one of these two is missing over here. Let me put everything to sound. Yeah, so this one over here is the one that I'm missing, so I'm gonna paste it over here. So I'm gonna play around a little bit with this bass over here, which I feel is cool. It has the right notes. I just want to play around with the actual sound, maybe add a little bit of, you know, chorus or like, you know, a phaser, something that would make it a little bit more spacious, have a different, you know, texture to it. So I will go over here to Valhalla, which I tend to use for the reverb, but on this one I use this one called Uber Mod, and you know it has a lot of different, you know, assembles, chorus, you know, doubling, flangers, like, you know, it has a little bit of everything to give, you know, different sounds and textures to the actual like bass that we recorded. So let's put it alone and play around with some presets, see if there's something that will help get it to the point where I'm, you know, hearing it in my head. So I think it sounds good now with this plugin that we added. I think I would probably try and pitch it down, see if it works down better than where it is actually right now. So let's just move this knob over here on pitch towards the left, going down to a 12, and see if it works or if it's something that, you know, maybe lost the sound. If it doesn't work, we go back up to 0 and keep it where it was. I think it's too low right now where it is. I'm gonna try an option of changing this setting from beats to complex and see if there's a different sound. It would change, but maybe it works better. Maybe it was good where it was and just put it at the 0 over here on this knob and not be so low. So let's see how this sounds on, you know, on complex. Nope. So let's keep it on beats and go back up to 0 over here. What we can maybe try is adding a filter to it also and just see if it, you know, it gives it a different, you know, dynamic, sort of different sound, not so present, because right now I think it's pretty bright for everything that we have. So let's see if this works a little bit better. So let's play around with the, you know, frequency over here and take a little bit of that high frequency off of it. So I think that works a little bit better. So let's play it all together and see now from this point on, where can we go to keep adding some, you know, some elements to help grow, you know, this track. So I think I like where it is. I'll probably add this plugin to the main melody to see if we can take a little bit of, you know, maybe some of the low end off of it, maybe add more space to the sound, make it go more, not keep it in the middle, but more open and, you know, stereo. So let's go over here to the Slate Digital, the Merda Melodies plugin. And just for now, let's work on this spread, you know, knob over here, which would take everything sounding in the middle more towards, you know, left and right on your speakers. So I think I like how that sounds. I would probably play around with some of these knobs. They have different, you know, this has dimension. has motion over here, probably give it a little bit of movement. This is a reverb. This creates a little bit of, you know, warmth, saturation on the sound. I think this reverse it. It has a little bit of a delay, so you start hearing a little bit more of an extended version and echo on the song, on the sound. This adds, you know, a little bit of clarity, which I think we will need because I think it's a little bit too dark right now. And over here on this one, ensemble, I think it's something that we did on the bass, so we can probably add it to this one. And so let's start playing around with some of these knobs and see if we can elevate this main melody. So I think this works a lot better. I added some, you know, the ensemble, which we, you know, would add some like chorus or flanger, or, you know, make it a little bit more open. We added some, you know, clarity over here, so a little bit more brightness, not so dark, and some reverb on this left knob over here. So I think with these, we have a cool like bass for, you know, what the melodies and bass part are, you know, for this initial part of the song. So from this point on, I just want to start seeing what the groove would be, maybe working with the percussion, going through some snares, some kicks, some hi-hats, and probably coming up with a groove for this cool melody that we have over here. So let's just start going through like different, you know, samples for either kicks or snares or, you know, hi-hats. So for now, I think we'll probably start looking for a snare, see something that could work with, you know, this particular track. So I'm gonna start going through, you know, different types of snares over here in these sample libraries. This section over here has a lot of like cool snares, so maybe we can start like playing the song and maybe start going through exploring different snares. So let's just do that. So I think I like this one. I'll probably throw it out over here as a waveform and not just look into a MIDI track, because I want to play around with it, probably see if I can take, you know, a little bit of this tail over here off, and, you know, probably see how that sounds by wrapping, putting it into beats, changing this towards the right, and taking a little bit out of this, you know, 100, you know, making it going, you know, towards the left, and, you know, taking some of this section, you know, out of here. So let's start playing around with that. So I think that's a good sound for the snare. So now let's start creating a pattern or a groove. So I'll probably copy and paste this to different parts, you know, of the grid, and, you know, come up with a cool bounce to it. So I think let's see how these three sound over here. I think these three sound good. I think I want to add it to this part over here, or maybe one to the right. Yeah, let's see how this sounds over here. So I think that sounds cool. So now let's add this section that we have over here to the rest of the track. And probably if we listen to it now completely, it has more of a groove and a bounce to it. So I just selected it, and Command D will just duplicate exactly what you have selected over here in blue. So now let's play this from the top and see how this sounds. So I like it. I think I want to add on the second go around one more snare, like over here. So let me hear how that sounds. Yeah, so I like that. So let's just copy this, same thing, just duplicate it. And now we have it on each section. And let's hear how that sounds now. So I think I'm happy with this. I can probably start playing around now with, you know, maybe some hi-hats to add a little bit more of a groove and some movement to it, and see if we have, you know, a particular, you know, vibe to now what we have melodically. So let's go over here to some close hi-hats and see if we find something cool on it. So let's play this and start scrolling. So I think I like this over here. So what I'm gonna do is create a audio track, throw this over here, exactly how I did with the snare. I'm not using a MIDI on this one, MIDI track, because I wanna like be able to just play around with it. Probably, you know, grab this, take a little bit out, you know, put a little fade out over here, and just start like playing around with the sound. So let's see if we can come up with a pattern for this and just like duplicate it for the rest of the track. Yeah, exactly. So what I want to do is select this section over here and just duplicate it for the rest of it, and it's gonna give it, you know, that energy and that, you know, certain bounce that I'm, you know, looking for. So I think we have something cool over here. Something that I want to try on this bass that we have is put a little bit of compression on it, because I think it would make it sound a little bit fuller. So what I'm gonna do is probably go to my plugins and look for Universal Audio and play. Let me just search it over here, called the Empirical Labs Fatso. I think this could probably make it a little bit, you know, fatter. It's gonna sound a lot bigger and compressed. So let me see if this one works or if we try another option. But let's just like nudge this back to 0 in the volume so we can play around with the output volume from the plugin. Okay, so what I'm gonna try to do is add another compressor to it to just like keep it in that same, you know, not picking, you know, on the clipping, you know, on the track. So maybe I want to add this threshold over here to probably prevent it from, you know, going into that clipping section. So also like turn on this soft clip over here. So let's see if this works, and probably helps it not get to that certain level. So I'm really happy with what we got over here right now. I was able to get, certain elements of the percussion, get a bass line, get, a melodic element. And I think with the next lesson, we're going to be adding more elements. I know that percussion wise, we need to go a little bit more on this, maybe add a kick, maybe add a different type of bass, something that has a little bit of more movement, create an intro, make the different sections, like figure out what would be a verse, what would be a hook or a drop, something that would be special on the track. So come with me on the next lesson and let's keep it going.